Shifting gears, I would like to ask the gentleman about a piece of legislation that we filed that we've been trying to get unanimous consent to bring up. And this is H.R. 962, a bill by my colleague Ann Wagner from Missouri. As we saw earlier in these last few days, you had the governor of New York signing legislation that, among other things, would allow for a baby that comes out of the womb alive, whether it's from an abortion that wasn't successful, whatever the case. If a baby comes out of the womb alive, the fact that in the state of New York, and now we saw the governor of Virginia talking on a radio show about how that process and procedure would be carried out, where the baby, after it's born alive, can be killed legally in those states. And as we talk about the sanctity of innocent life, clearly there are many different divisions amongst the parties on the issue of abortion. But to many, this issue transcends abortion. This isn't related to abortion anymore. If a baby comes out of the womb and is alive, the fact that in only 26 states there are protections that that baby can't be killed, that means in nearly half of the states in this country, that baby still can be killed legally. I still don't completely grasp how that's legal in America, that someone who's born alive can still be killed and have that be legal in certain states. And so we have a bill called the Born Alive Act that would ensure that, regardless of how you feel about abortion, pro-life, pro-choice, after the baby comes out of the womb alive, it shouldn't be able to be killed. And H.R. 962 gives that protection that it can't be killed. And I would ask the gentleman if he would allow that bill to come to the House floor for vote. And I yield back.
Thank the gentleman for the question. As the gentleman knows, this bill was introduced in the last Congress, in which the Republicans were in his party in charge of the House and the Senate and the presidency, and it did not pass the Congress and go to the president. We will pursue the regular order. This bill, like every other bill, will be referred to committee, and the committee will handle its consideration as the committee sees fit. The gentleman has talked about, or there has been discussion about a discharge petition that is obviously available. We tried very hard to have people we call dreamers allowed to stay in the only country they know, and unfortunately the leadership was against that discharge petition, and it never got to the floor. So many bills that either side may want, some come to the floor, some don't. But this will go through the regular process, and it's going to be referred to the Committee of Jurisdiction, and we will see how that proceeds. I yield back.
And I would remind the gentleman that when we did bring that piece of legislation last year, the Born Alive Protection Act, it did pass the House 241 to 183 in a bipartisan way, with 6 Democrats voting with us to pass that bill to the Senate. It did not get passed in the Senate. However, as you look now, there have been a number of alarming developments that have raised the profile of this issue. When the governor of New York signed into law his legislation and celebrated the fact that in his state you can kill a baby after it's been born, and you saw applause in the legislature over that, it shocked people across the country. It horrified and angered people across the country. When the governor of Virginia just a few days ago went on a radio station and described in detail how a baby born alive can still be killed, can be killed after it's born alive. And it's legal in that state. It's legal and not protected in nearly a majority of our states. This issue has come to the forefront of Americans. Again, pro-life, pro-choice wherever you are on this issue. The vast majority of Americans feel strongly that you should not be able to kill the baby after it's born alive. And so we can talk about a long, drawn-out legislative process, but now there is more interest and more anger to confront this violent act of murder. How can it be anything other than murder to kill a child after it comes out of the womb? And so I know we can talk about a long, drawn-out procedure. A discharge, I have made it very clear, I will be filing a discharge petition if we can't get to the point where we get this bill brought to the floor in a quicker way. There is a quicker way to do this and address this problem. Again, if you ask most pro-choice people in America, they don't think it's right that you can kill the baby after it comes out of the womb. And so, as the gentleman can talk about a regular order procedure, this bill has passed the House before, and now there's more interest in the Senate to confront this issue. We have the ability to give them that opportunity. And I would just ask if the gentleman would reconsider to move this in a quicker way and allow the unanimous consent motion to go through. If no one objects, we can bring that bill to the floor. And so far as we've been making the motion for unanimous consent, there has been no opposition expressed. They've just not allowed the motion to go forward and be recognized. And so I would just ask the gentleman to reconsider and allow us to at least have that opportunity to try to bring this bill to the floor in the quickest way possible to stop this barbaric process from being allowed anywhere in America. And I yield.
I thank the gentleman. My answer, however, is the same to the gentleman, Madam Speaker. We have a process. The bill has just been introduced. It will be referred to committee, and the committee will have it under regular order to consider. I cannot predict what the committee will do with that bill, but I understand the gentleman's strong feelings. I respect those. And I respect the fact that this is an issue that is current. But again, my answer to the distinguished Republican leader, Whip, is that we will be considering that in the regular order. And at that point in time, I'm sure that he will be able to testify before the committee, and if and when there's a hearing. And that others will as well, including the sponsor. But we're going to pursue the regular order on this bill and other bills as well.
Well, thank you, the gentleman, for those comments. I would just ask if the gentleman would urge the chairman of the Judiciary Committee to move swiftly to bring this bill up for a vote as we continue to use every legislative tool we have available to hopefully try to get a unanimous consent agreement to bring the bill to the floor. But ultimately, if that is not allowed, and if the committee process doesn't work and actually take attention to this in a quick way, then we will go a different route and use the discharge petition route. So we've continued to try to make the point that this issue needs to be addressed by this Congress. The President, in his State of the Union Tuesday night, was very clear that Congress ought to address this issue. And the President, in his speech, and I thought it was an incredibly eloquent speech, confronting the challenges we face, but also talking about the greatness of this country and highlighting some of the people who achieved greatness, the three men who stormed the beaches of Normandy, and the challenges they faced to liberate Europe, to keep America free. Ultimately, one of those gentlemen actually went on to help liberate Dachau and to see the Holocaust survivor who was at Dachau and liberated by that very gentleman. To both be on the same row of the gallery was a special moment that reminds us of the greatness of this country. And as the President talked about that at the end, he challenged us, he challenged Congress to reach for greatness, not gridlock, but for that same greatness as we confront the challenges that this great nation faces today. This action, the fact that in many states of this nation, it is allowed to kill a baby after it's been born, is a moral wrong that we need to fix. That is another act of greatness that we need to rise up to. And I hope we do in the quickest way possible. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.